Hello all, this is Dr. Sue from Purely Pediatrics. Thank you again for being interested in our weekly content. This week I'm going to be talking about night terrors. I wanted first to start off to let you know that I oftentimes refer parents to the Johns Hopkins website. It's hopkinsallchildrens.org when I mention night terrors because I love the information that it does provide. They do have a sleep center information there too, which can give us some really good information about sleep as well. So that's a website that I really enjoy and tell families about it quite a bit. But I want to start off with, what are night terrors? You know, generally a night terror is a disruption in sleep that seems similar to a nightmare but is even more dramatic. Night terrors can be alarming, but they're usually not a cause for concern or a sign of any medical issue, which is really good to know. If your child has ever had what's known as a night terror, another name is a sleep terror, he or she was likely inconsolable, and that is how I can tell if it's a night terror. Families will tell me that they'll be inconsolable for 30 to 40 minutes even, and it can be really scary for parents. So that's why I wanted to make sure we visit this content because I am seeing it more frequently. During a night terror, some of the signs and symptoms that you may notice are they suddenly sit upright in bed, they shout out or they scream in distress, they have faster breathing, their heart's beating faster, they may even be sweating, they may be thrashing around in bed and act upset or scared. After a few minutes or even longer, the child can calm down and return to sleep without any reassurance at all. Unlike nightmares, which kids and adults often remember, kids won't have any memory of a night terror the next day. So if you ask them what happened, they may not really know what you're talking about, which is a good thing to know as well, because then when they had the night terror, they were in a deep sleep when it happened, and there's no mental images that they're able to recall to tell you about. What causes night terrors? Generally, it's an over-arousal of the central nervous system during sleep. And if you remember, sleep happens in multiple stages. We have dreams, including nightmares, during rapid eye movement stage. Night terrors happen during deep, non-rapid eye movement stage. A night terror is not a dream, but more of a sudden reaction of fear that happens during a sleep transition from one stage to another. Night terrors can happen after about 2 or 3 hours after a child falls asleep. It can happen earlier on or even later on. But generally it can happen when sleep moves from the deepest stage of non-REM sleep to lighter REM sleep. Usually this transition is a smooth one, but sometimes a fear reaction may happen, which we don't fully understand why, but that is called a night terror. Who gets night terrors? Night terrors have been more noted in kids and even adults who are overtired, ill, or stressed, taking a new medication, sleeping in a new environment or away from home, kids that are overtired, not getting enough sleep, or even having too much caffeine can contribute to night terrors. They only happen in 3 to 6% of kids. Well, almost every child will have a nightmare occasionally, but remember, with nightmares, you can usually recall them, and they're usually consolable. Night terrors generally can happen in kids most commonly between 4 and 12 years of age, but they've been reported in babies as young as 12 to 18 months, which is also good to know because I have been seeing at some of these younger children and have been able to reassure their parents, knowing that they are showing clear symptoms of night terrors. They seem to be a little more common among boys, and we're not sure why that is. There can be a genetic tendency. About 80% of kids who have a family member who also had sleepwalking or night terrors as a child. And sleepwalking is a similar type of sleep disturbance, but we're not going to get into that here. A child may have a single night terror or several before they stop, but most of the time they simply disappear on their own as the nervous system of the child matures. Although night terrors can be very, very upsetting for parents, the best way to handle it is to wait it out. Make sure your child doesn't get hurt if they do thrash around or they do sit up in bed. Generally, they'll settle down, return to their sleep in a few minutes. They say it's best not to wake your kids during a night terror, but oftentimes it won't work because they will be inconsolable. So do not hesitate to go on in there and just sit next to them on the bed, hold them if you need to, and allow them to settle down and go back to sleep. There's no treatment for night terrors. Generally, they grow out of them when their nervous system matures, but you can try to help prevent them. And ways that you can do this are reducing child's stress, really being aware of things that they're doing that may be causing them anxiety and stress, and trying to help to resolve that and help them to work through that. Create a bedtime routine that's simple and relaxing. That's a really great thing to think about. I love bath time before bed. I think that's a really great tool to use to help us relax. Even meditation before bedtime is great. And young kids are not too young for meditation activities. Making sure your child gets enough rest is also very, very important, as when we're overtired is when we tend to have disturbances with our sleep. Also, one of the other things that may be helpful is if you try to keep your child on a sleep routine, even on the weekends. Don't let them stay up too late. Don't let them sleep in too late as well. Try to keep them on that nice sleep routine where they're getting between 9 and 11 hours of sleep every evening. I think that is one of the keys, some of the key points I wanted to mention. If your child does have a night terror around the same time every night, you can try to wake them up 15 or 30 minutes before to see if it can prevent that. But if you start to see patterns, you can try to get involved a little earlier if you notice they are doing that. Understanding night terrors is very, very important for parents because you also want to be able to get a good night's sleep too. If night terrors are happening repeatedly, then we can even talk about a referral to a sleep specialist. But in my experience, I've never had to do that because the kids have generally outgrown those night terrors. So I hope this is helpful. And, remember, talk to your pediatrician if you feel like there's things that are going on during sleep time that are concerning. Remember, we are always here for you. And if we don't know what's going on, we have resources that we can find out what's going on with you and to help parents understand where to go from there. All right, all. Thank you so much. Have a great night.